Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Curacel podcast. My name is Abdul Jabbar Mama, and I'll be your host for today. With me, I have an exciting guest in the house. I even like to describe him as, our influencer and thought leader in the Nigerian insurance industry. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Godwin-Usoro, witness Paul. I'll let him introduce himself because I may not do proper justice to that introduction. Hey, Chief, thank you for joining me today. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Abdul Jabbar, for having me. And thank you to Curacel team for this opportunity. Um, you guys are doing fantastic work, and I must say that I find it um, I find it as a privilege to be here. Um, all of what you said about me, I'm also surprised about it. But my name is Witness Godwin-Usoro. I popularly go by the name Mr. Fixer, because I naturally solve business problems for a living. That's what I do for a living. Um, and currently, I'm head of retail division for the SanlamAllianz general business. Um, it means that every of the distributional issues around retail is what makes me not sleep well at night. So but beyond that, I've spent all my life in the insurance ecosystem, from corporate to retail to underwriting, the technical part of things, to the front end part of things, sales, to even middle office, where I was in technology for a bit as a business analyst and a product manager. I like to say I've touched every part. I've touched the full arm. I've touched the micro insurance. I've touched the life insurance. I've touched the general insurance. I've touched almost every part. Even reinsurance. I've done trainings on trainings and trainings in reinsurance. So even the insurtech space. I've been in the insurtech space. So pretty much in my career. So I feel like I I am like a basic Bible of insurance.
Nice.
Thank you very
Ladies
much
and
for having me.
gentlemen, we present to you Mr. Fixer, the Bible of insurance, and a well-rounded professional. You see why I said I couldn't do justice to that intro? I didn't even know you've had, some Takaful experience and all of that. But
Yeah, Cornerstone has a Taka for ham.
oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
true.
they have a Taka for ham.
Interesting. So we're going to be talking about reaching everyday Africans through digital insurance, which falls within your purview in
Mm.
retail. But before we get into that, I'd like to thank our guests and our viewers for joining us today. For those of you just engaging with us for the first time, Curacel is the leading provider for AI-powered, solutions and infrastructure in financial services across emerging markets. So for more exciting content on insurance and technology, don't forget to follow, subscribe, and stick to this channel. All right, Chief Witness,
Yeah.
so let's get into it. Let's get into it. I
Okay.
think
Okay.
for us to set the context, I guess I'll start from the basics, right? When we talk about insurance from a retail perspective, what does that actually mean in practice? What kind of products are we talking about? Who is your everyday customer? And what kind of products are they buying today, to just set the
Okay.
terrain. Yeah.
Awesome question. Awesome question. So first, I like to emphasize that when people see retail is not individual insurance.
Yeah.
They make it seem like retail insurance in Africa is just individual insurance for one particular person. No, that's
Yeah.
not what it is. It is meant to be a mass market and risk protection for people living basically more in the informal and the semi-formal economies. You know how the banks have a outreach to reach the unbanked. The retail
Yeah.
insurance is meant to be that replica for the insurance industry. A typical customer of a retail customer should be maybe that trader that's in Balogun Market in Lagos, or that trader that's in Sabo Gani in Kano,
Mhm.
or an Okada rider, even a salary earner that earns money between the range of maybe 80,000 to less than 500K in a month is
Yeah.
an ideal retail customer. A small business owner is also an ideal business owner. And most times we build products around that. So what are the products that are necessarily buying today? I'll tell you that what we've seen so far is that most of the people buying stocks in retail are basically doing it more from a compliance perspective. That's why in the motor insurance scheme, you see that the biggest selling part is the third party motor. That sells faster because compliance. We don't want police problem. We don't want anybody holding us down. And we use that opportunity to also start pushing products like a personal accident. Often we still try to bundle it with other products just to make it easy for it to sell and scale. And the biggest part of the insurance space that is even really, really, really selling is the health insurance aspect, where we have simple health insurance products, hospital cash plans that
Yeah,
make it like very relatable. So in the
yeah.
reality, almost everybody is a retail customer, but most people are not necessarily buying insurance for protection. They're buying it because they're required to, and that's the gap that we've been trying to close.
Exactly. And we've seen newer, digital first insurers. Do we call them the new insurers now? Across
Yeah,
people like Pineapple, I like to always cite them as a case study. They
yeah,
do a great job in South Africa. These guys are making insurance feel much more approachable, understood by the newer generation. Insurance feels fun, in how it's perceived, in how
yeah,
it's experienced. I was in the Gralix InsurTech conference in Zambia, and we had one of the Pineapple founders do an entire case study, and I was wowed. I was like, you know, there are things a lot of traditional, insurance businesses could learn in terms of marketing from these guys, right? Because
yeah.
penetration is still low. And I mean, SanlamAllianz and the likes, we have the deep pockets, right? So on the market
You said
side,
so.
oh, I mean, that's from an outside perspective,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
what we would think. So how can we crack marketing, to get insurance into, more households, into more hands of the people that need them the most? How do we increase that penetration needle, and increase that reach to this people you've described across the business owners, the informal sector? How do we get more of them on board?
Okay, awesome. So, one of the good things about my career is that I've had opportunity to spend a lot of time in the traditional insurance companies, and I've also worked in the insurtech space. So
Exactly.
I'll tell you three major things that has necessarily been the problems. First, for us to be able to reach out to all of these people, you must think digitally first. You must be a digital first insurer. And one of the issues that most traditional insurers have struggled with is as simple as simplicity, simplifying things. Simplicity is a
Okay.
major issue. You see that they are already caught. An average underwriter feels like they've not done underwriting if their document is just one pager. They, they don't feel like they have done work if they don't have a large big policy document that they've
Yeah.
assessed. Even when it comes to risk management in itself, you see the turnaround time with quotation. They'll tell you, oh, no, same risk is the same. Yes, which is true, but the reality is that with the intelligence we've gathered with data, we should be able to assess different quotations of different risks, irrespective of the different scope,
Yeah.
in a very faster way. But they just want to, that simplification of things in itself, they don't necessarily have the ability to, I won't say they don't have, they struggle with simplification.
I
Um,
get
you,
stuck in the old ways, would you
yeah,
say?
not,
See
I mean,
them
I won't
change.
necessarily say stuck in the old ways. I would say there's a mental disposition that they have with the jargons that are associated with insurance. So
Technical jargons.
yeah, I say this because my background is in actuarial science, so I know how you can necessarily hide on technicalities to make you feel like you are the wisest person in the room. But the
Like
real
what?
the real result is when it is simplified and everybody can understand it, and that's one of the things that the traditional insurers actually struggle with, you know. Um,
Especially the informal sector, if you think about it, yeah. I mean, the people who you're trying to reach need it to
yeah,
be as simple as possible. So,
yeah.
is it that now this audience, they don't really understand insurance in terms of like the policy, what it would do for them? I mean, is it that we're not communicating in the language they understand as the first
So,
barrier?
so there is that. Even the audience that is a formal one, how many of them actually understand the insurance jargons?
Exactly.
Let's even go bigger. Like the guys that are well read, the formal guys, the bankers. In fact, even the people that work in insurance companies, if you want to try it, ask them how many of you have an household policy. You will see the adoption is even low there. It tells you that it's not simplified. The value has not been simplified in a way where the value realization is visible to everyone.
I
So
agree.
it's yes, we know the value proposition, but creating that value in a way that the value proposition is visible to everyone and simple for everyone to understand the realization ability of that value has been the issue. So simplification is the problem. That's one of
Yeah.
the issues.
So keeping it simple would be a very
Yeah.
good start. Let's even talk about numbers. Um, I mean, on fast retail moving products like third party, maybe now, like you said, micro health insurance plans, right? Are the
Yeah.
margins even making sense? I mean, apart from regulatory enforcement on like third party, how can we also even drive adoption and profitability? Because again, there are other products beyond micro health insurance, third party motor insurance. How do we drive, the popularity and adoption across the market?
So the first point of call will be from the point of messaging. What's how is our communication to the market like? You know, you see an average insurance communication about third party being that avoid being harassed by police, buy your third party insurance. When in the reality of things, there are a lot of benefits to the third party insurance. The fact that when you hit somebody, you don't have to worry up to a threshold of 3 million. Or the fact that if there's a debt issue, you don't have to be the one carrying all of the hassles on your head. Or if there's a issue to a third party, there's basically no issue in your own head. So we don't necessarily sell the product benefits. We sell the adverse character effect of not having that policy. So that's where I think the major issues are. And another thing that we've not really done well from the insurance perspective is that we've not been very strong with our testimonials.
Yeah,
We've not been very strong with our testimonials. Yes, we do pay claims, but people don't believe that we pay claims because we don't speak about the claims that we pay.
enough. Yeah,
So those are the issues, those are the bottlenecks. And you know how it is. Word of mouth is the best way of advertisement. When everyone knows that the person recommending you to that particular product has been a witness of that particular product, it's easier to sell that product.
I see what you did there.
No,
Witness.
I'm just calling my name.
But yeah, I totally agree with you, and all these, are different forms of marketing, is either people are speaking well of their experience, through word of mouth, through testimonial programs, referral programs, and then even in the messaging, are we focusing on value rather than fear and, the advanced behaviors like you mentioned. And I guess if we focus more on value, even for other product categories, we'll be able to scale beyond even third-party motor insurance. I don't think, health insurance is compulsory yet. Highly recommended. It makes sense on a unit economics level. So even, people in the informal sector are beginning to key into it. But I would not even still say the penetration is up there, right? So yeah, more on value. But what about margins, right? I mean, if you have to now strip a product down to meet, the price point of, an everyday person in the informal sector, probably somewhere around minimum wage. even let's even take the third party and the micro health insurance products we've been referencing. Are the margins even making sense? Is it that it's not looking very profitable, and maybe that's why insurance businesses are not carrying so much,
Uh,
since how much
so,
that.
so I would say that if we look at it from the product perspective,
Mhm.
Nikon has even made it easier for people that have motor insurance now. They increase the pricing from 5,000 to 15,000. So I don't think pricing is the issue there. I'll speak of two products differently because they both have different approaches. So
All
for the
right.
motor insurance, for example, um, insurance in itself, when you ask people what insurance is, the average person would say it's a risk transfer mechanism. Yeah, that's the textbook level, that's the textbook definition. But there's
Yeah.
another part that people don't really talk about. It's actually a pool of funds.
Yeah.
So if you have the large number of adoption, your pricing can go lower. So, from the motor insurance perspective, no insurer can come and tell me that third party is not profitable. No insurer. I can tell you that for free. The margins are good.
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily the same story for health insurance because I've also done products for health, and I can tell you that the average claim ratio for health insurance is 80%. Because an average person that is buying health insurance is buying it to go and claim. So on health insurance, we know government has tried some different initiatives like creating of the last mile, where there's a vanilla version of what the pricing should be. But to really get the proper pricing, there has to be maximum the scaling must be good for you to be able to
Yeah.
cover up the price. Because the truth is, health insurance is actually very expensive.
Yeah.
And if you want to demystify it or make it better for an average customer, the moving that price point might be quite difficult. It doesn't necessarily make commercial sense for the insurer.
Makes sense. And the probability of incidents is even higher, like you
Yeah.
said, the probability one will fall sick in a year and one will have an accident in a year. Uh,
You get it. Even if they don't want to do
Absolutely.
anything, that paracetamol, they will get it. They'll get it from that company. But
Absolutely.
a third party, you don't necessarily have to claim anything. You can go 2, 3 years and you never claim.
So, I mean, let's even talk about, we're talking about products from a micro level now.
Yeah.
Nigeria has a sachet economy, as I like to describe it sometimes, right?
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of fast-moving consumer, FMCG businesses basically, prioritize sachet micro quantity, products. Again, they still have the full size versions, right, on the upper end supermarket shelves. But what gets across to the streets, the mid to the lower end neighborhoods, is still the sachets from milk to detergents. Do you think, that same model can be translated to insurance? Or, how do we take this micro, approach to design products that are more consumer friendly to drive adoption is what I'm saying in a nutshell.
Okay. Awesome question. Let me first say that at one point, I think it was 5 years ago when I wrote about sachet insurance, I did a bit of work around there. Um, I like to say that the sachet model should normally work for insurance, but here's the twist. For sachet to work in insurance, some elements have to be very, very available. Number one is payment has to be flexible. We've not gotten
Uh,
to the point where we can do daily and weekly payments.
yeah.
Value has to be immediate and visible.
Okay.
So, like normal products, insurance is intangible. So, unlike normal products like Milo, milk, you can't
Yeah,
taste it.
have something.
You can't taste it. Like it. So, if until for it to be sachet insurance, it has to be number one event driven. For example. that I will give you an opportunity to have an hospital visit if you just buy my insurance for 1,000.
Even on the
Or
basic consultation or something.
yes, the basic consultation. It has to be, or I can even add the freemium elements. Try this, get a free consultation, and from there you can mark up your money. Like we've not gotten there at all. And it has to be embedded in daily living, our daily life.
What's
It has
holding
to be
us
that,
from
yes, it
doing
has
that?
to be that you're not necessarily going to buy insurance. You're buying something and it's just embedded in it and you're buying the insurance. So
Mm.
sachet in itself should work, but it cannot work until we get payments right, until we get the value proposition right.
But we have a lot of payment solutions across board. Even at Curacel, we have an amazing payment solution from workflows to disbursements to collections, buy now, pay later in insurance. You know, um, so what's really holding us back? Is it the payments infrastructure that is not available, or is it the product design flexibility that is tough, based on maybe regulatory boundaries? I mean, what is holding us back from product innovation and technology to make this experience happen?
That's a fantastic question. And that question should go to an insurtech guy like you. But let me say something that I heard. A first time a first time investor, we focus on products. A second time investor, we focus on distribution. You see, the real problem is not products. It's not the fantastic payment platforms that we have. It's not that. The real problem is in distribution. The real problem is in distribution. How can we hack distribution? How can we ensure, like I have a large amount of sales force reporting to me, from directly to indirectly, I have that. How can I ensure that I sleep and I wake up and this amount of traction is what I get? It's a distribution game here. In fact, dig it out. You will see that the best of guys that are accurate in distribution don't necessarily have the best products. They don't necessarily have the best products. So if you ask me what is holding us back, is that distribution in itself is hard work. I can tell you that in the past 3 months, I've traveled to, I've been almost everywhere in Nigeria. And I
Okay.
can tell you that the problems are peculiar. It's not, you can't replicate Lagos problem. You can't replicate Lagos solution to Abuja. You can't replicate Abuja solution to Kano. You really have to do, if you understand analysis of business problem, you have to do a proper analysis of that particular location problem and find a solution that is best fit for that location. And that's a distribution problem. It's hard work. Many people think that they can solve all their problem by asking ChatGPT, how can I scale insurance? ChatGPT will give you answers, but it's just going to be randomized answers. It's make feel answers. But the real work is going to those locations, finding out from the locals, how can I make sure things work here? I'll give you a simple arc here. Indomie, for example, we know that Indomie is a retail product. It is a retail product. It sells
Mhm.
well in the Southwest as a retail product, and the people eat it. But if you go to the North, they snack on Indomie. They literally don't cook Indomie. They eat it like biscuits. So if you carry the same solution that you feel is the best way to solve an Indomie distribution game, and you carry it to the North, you would fail.
Totally different.
You will fail. That's the same thing that's happening. If I am to break down how um, people think that SanlamAllianz, for example, the biggest market sometimes can be in the Southwest. I don't necessarily think it is. I'm not giving you information more than that. I'll just tell you that if you just can understand that distribution is a lot of work and you have to be ready for the work, then you can scale it.
I guess that's where technology and partnerships come in, right? It's
Yeah.
like the technology to support that reach across, for those that are mobile upwards, and then even the partnerships across both digital and non-digital channels, right? Because your customer is probably already shopping somewhere. Your customer is already accustomed to a certain way of life. Your customer already has certain touch points they interact with on a daily basis, right? So how do we reach them there? East Africa is a very good well, example, right? The likes of Toronto are also killing it in the embedded insurance space, for example. I mean, in East Africa, insurance at the micro level has been able to get to market women, has been able to get to Okada riders, embedded in their daily living, right? And these are just, our neighbors in the East here, for example. You and I are both sitting in Lagos now. So,
Yeah.
I mean, not very far away from us, the concept of embedded insurance as, a vehicle to push micro insurance products is gaining traction by the day from, mobile to offline, online experiences. Now, you said clearly, products are one thing. You may have a fantastic product, but distribution. If you were to give us three hacks, for example, you would recommend, to have distribution in Nigeria to be as successful as East Africa or anywhere else, probably, what things should we be looking at?
So first thing is understanding the market, understanding where the mass market is, you know, because first you must understand that your resources are limited. So you must apply your resources the right way. So you have to first have proper market intelligence as to where do I want to invest my energy in and why. So if you can answer that question, then you can now try to build distributional partnerships around that area. You know, so for example, am I looking at telcos? Am I trying to do more? Am I in the telcos? Which of the telcos do I have a leverage in? Or am I looking at fintechs? What am I trying to do with the fintech companies? Or is it even right hailing? Like which platforms am I trying to embed myself in? And the truth is that yes, these partnerships are already happening at different silos, but
Mhm.
it is just weak. That's it. What's happening in East Africa is actually coming to West Africa. It is just that it's not as fast as what is happening in East Africa. And another thing that you would also see is that your product in itself, are you sure that you're building the right kind of products? When I mean products here, I'm not talking of platforms. I'm talking of the product, insurance product in itself.
Transparent
Yeah,
itself,
the
yeah.
physical product in itself. That are you sure you're building the right product for the right markets? You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Market,
even as simple as the name of the product, it matters in some markets. It matters in
mm-hmm.
some markets. So you
Yeah.
have to be sure.
Localization of, yeah.
Yes, you have to be exactly the word is localization of your products, one, and ensuring that your product is not even complex to embed. So if I
Absolutely.
if I'm trying to put your product in a cowrie for example, or in a piggy vest, for example, as a financial saving plan that has an incentive, it has to be easy for even the people working on it to understand it. Not talk of the customer base. It has to be simple, And one of the things that you said around East Africa is that they built mobile money ecosystems very well,
Yeah.
and they were very invisible to their customers. We are trying to be visible, guys, but visibility is not the solution. If you want to embed, you just get it without them knowing. But the reality is that they start to know you more when they start when value realization is obvious. That is,
Yeah.
oh, you just suffered a particular loss, then insurance company is stepping up. That's where the value comes from. That's where the
Absolutely.
value comes from.
When you talked about, simple to embed, even being invisible, it was just striking the bell for me. I mean, this is why we built Curacel Grow, right? Moving from where we would see this kind of partnerships take months, engineering sitting down to understand how do we connect these people's legacy system core APIs to this our new modern shiny wallet platform. and make them interact with each other in real time, that a customer can automatically make a request and get their policy in minutes. They are also able to file a claim and get paid, in a matter of
Every
hours.
time.
Is you get what I'm saying, in real time. And that's where a lot of the systems are broken. And again, we have the infrastructure to also support all this distribution, right? But are we really leveraging on it, to tap into these experiences, or the potential of these
Mm.
experiences today, is the big question. But yeah, you've played on both sides, and this is where, traditional meets old school meets new school, or let me put it that way, right? You've played
Yeah.
from the traditional perspective, the corporate, to the startup, let's move fast, break things, be digital first, so I mean, how, if you were to marry both worlds, right, to get the best, of this situation. Again, the startups are, oh, we have the right platforms, the right channels, the right technology. The insurers have the reach, right? They have the reputation, they have all of this. What can they leverage on, in terms of like collaboration? What can they learn from each other, to drive this penetration we're talking about at scale? I mean, from experience at Cassava down now to SanlamAllianz, you know,
Yeah.
what would be your recommendation to marry both worlds?
So from insurtechs, what I was going to say is that let's do it this way. I'll tell you the three major things you get from insurtechs, the three major things you get from the traditional insurers, and then we'll look at it that way. So from the insurtechs, the first thing I had to learn when I got to Cassava is that the leverage they only had, number one, was speed.
Absolutely.
Insurtech speed is a major element. Speed. Then the second thing I'll tell you is that because they are small at the beginning, there's a lot of conversations around customer obsession.
Yeah.
They are obsessed. They are obsessed with, we just got in one customer. Jesus Christ. How can we ensure this customer never leaves?
Gets the best experience
You
retention.
are in bed with this customer. If this customer coughs, you want to make sure that you are solving the problem immediately. What's the bottleneck? You are doing different product testing to be sure the customer doesn't have no. There's this obsession with
Yeah.
how the customer feels, and the third thing I would say is that because of the agility of insurtechs, you will see
Mhm.
that product simplicity is easier there. Product simplicities are easier there. So there's always product increment, product increment. At the first 3 months in Cassava, I was one of the biggest things in my OKRs was that I must ensure that there were product increments. So I'm constantly evaluating what can we do to our product. If you ask how many is the customer base, that customer base is small compared to the customer base I have now. But then, if I don't have a product increment, I've not done anything. I must be looking at the pain point of the customer, and because of the agility of the business, we must ensure that it is as simplified as possible. So three major things: speed, customer obsession, and product simplicity were the first things you get in the short-term space. But now, in the traditional insurance space, the first thing you will see is risk management discipline. That what they call technical. They want to they want to evaluate every freaking thing, and it's not because they are being stubborn. It's just the way it is. Because the business strength is on sustainability. It's on sustainability. It's not just about getting a customer. It's about ensuring that at the time when the customer comes for a promise, we can actually deliver.
Fulfill that.
So risk management discipline is a major thing. We see a lot of conversations around compliance. What I will do in a fast time in Cassava without any unnecessary approval, I'll go through different level of approvals in the SanlamAllianz business. And it's not being wicked, it's just the way it is.
Yeah.
So another major thing that you said, which is one of the things that you said in a very light manner, is capital strength. They have capital. So when they say they want to do something, they do it big.
Yep.
They do it big. So one of the things that you will see in the near future is I've seen one or two. We are in SanlamAllianz AO, but when you see insurance company just come and buy Curacel or buy or buy another insurtech company because they have capital strength.
Yeah.
They have capital strength. So that possibility is there. The last part I would say is claim sustainability. Claim sustainability. You can be sure when it comes to claims that they have it figured out.
Yeah.
They have it figured out. So in the reality, when you want to marry the two of them together, you have to stop looking at things from a place of competition and be more focused on things around collaboration.
Absolutely.
Collaboration has to be the focus. So for the insurtech, what they need now is for them to focus on distribution and experience. They have to focus on distribution and experience. And for the traditional insurer, their major focus is always their balance sheet and trust.
Absolutely. I
The
mean,
balance sheet has to make sense.
it has to make sense,
Yeah.
risk engineering. I mean, so claims is really where the rubber hits the road, and that is where we're seeing trust is also broken in the system, right?
Yeah.
Insurance became unpopular in a certain generation, probably stuck that way, in terms of like mindset over the time. So how can we change that perception today, right? A lot of people would feel, I mean, why do I need insurance? The process to claim is a lot stressful than the process to buy, right? Or there's a tendency I may not even claim. Or I will end up spending my money and I'm like, do I really want to go through this stress, to collect my money back, for example, in some cases. So based on your experience working on, both the digital first and, the traditional institutions, how can we collaboratively change this narrative, or how are you even working on changing this narrative today in your role as SanlamAllianz?
Okay, awesome. First, I like to say that genuine claims are paid by insurance company, whether you agree or not. One of the reasons why I work in insurance is because of claims. I
Yeah.
lost my dad at age 8. My 90th old birthday was when I saw my dad's corpse, and but my dad was wise enough to buy insurance, and insurance paid my own school fees from age 9 to age 18. He paid my younger sister's school fees from age 7 to age 18. He paid the last one's school fees from age 2 to age 18. So
Wow.
genuine claims are paid. Let's be clear about that.
Yeah.
Insurance actually do pay claims. But the issue that we have is around the customer experience around it, and sometimes the claims process can be actually poor. There are conversations around delays, documentation stress, there are conversations around lack of communication sometimes. They just go haywire. Nobody's talking to each other. After you notify them of a claim and they tell you to bring a document, they are not reminding you to tell you that you've not brought this particular document. So all of those things create some sense of distrust, and that's where the issue lies. But how are we fixing it now? And I will tell you how I am fixing it, because I work for a business and we are trying to fix that problem. The first thing is that we are trying to infuse speed into the process.
Okay.
We of course, with the help of technology, I can tell you that you've paid claims in less than 40 minutes before. Why? Because we're trying to infuse speed. We want the claims to be as instant as possible. And we don't want it to be focused on just investigation, but at the same time, value creation. That it has to be shared. That's the only time the customer knows that insurance actually works.
Yeah.
Then the second element is ensuring there's some sense of transparency. So if you go to our portal and you put in your claims number, we should be able to know where the claims is. If it's a very large amount of claim, we should be able to know, okay, the person is the loss adjuster that is delaying it. And we should be able to communicate that with you. There should be some sense of transparency. Even when we get to the point of the discharge voucher, you should be able to see clearly what adjustment was done and why it was done. So transparency is a major thing. And what I see in insurtech is what I'm trying to put in the traditional companies, which is ensuring that there's a lot of simplification. It has to be simplified. I know that you want all the documents. You want a police report for every accident. Oh, big man, come on. You didn't get police reports when you were trying to buy the policy. Why are you stressing me with police reports? Don't you get that I am already dissatisfied? If I'm dissatisfied and you're asking me for police report, you know in Nigeria, averagely, I have to pay for police reports. So can I take that out of my bottlenecks and say, I don't need police reports, except it's a very, very, very big amount of claim.
Yeah.
So you create justifications for the simplified claim, ensure that the whole thing is simplified. Every documentation that is not a hard knock that you must, is it a must have? If it's not a must have, you can take it off. You can take it off.
Exactly. At different thresholds, even.
Yeah.
I mean, I see how I mean, making simplicity the game changer, right? Because I was even gonna ask, what are you doing now in your current role? You've done some amazing work in strategy. Now you are, sleeves up executing to actually move that needle, right? Apart from simplifying the user experience, maybe even on the claim side, are there any other things you are currently,
I'm
you know,
currently doing. So
yeah, you're doing as a game changer?
the first thing I'm trying to do is what I said, the hard work, distribution game, solving the distribution game. So distribution in context of, distribution is not just field sales officers or increasing your number of staffs. No, no, no. That's not necessarily all that there is. It's ensuring that there are proper structures, ensuring that even at the point of alternative distribution, you're trying to find where are your leverage, what touch points do you want to be at, and why. There must be a why to everything. Like, why do I want to be in this touch point? Why do I want to invest in this? Is what's a value created when I go? So you must start to look at things from not balance sheet level, but I call it EVA, the economic value added. So you must know what economic value you are adding to every initiative you are trying to execute.
Makes sense. Now, there are a lot of buzzwords, I mean, AI is what's popping right now. Before then, blockchain at some point, we're still in the emergence of insurtechs. Digital transformation is a recurring conversation across every financial business today, but then again, if we're to strip all of this down, you as, a retail person, what piece of technology or what things, are making your life easier from a distribution perspective and leveraging technology? Are you seeing traction with mobile? What kind of platforms are, again, anything basically in technology that is driving real change for you, right? On the distribution perspective, what would that be?
So, awesome question. I like to say that when it comes to the field sales officers, it has to be mobile that works for me because I create a kind of digital system that is they have a mobile app where they can close in those businesses, but at the same time, the mobile app, their physical presence is there to do the communication to the customer to ensure that that customer trust element is solved. So, from
Okay.
a partnership perspective, of course, I know there are conversations around API, but let me tell you, not every partner is API ready. Even not every insurer is API ready. Sometimes I go as low as the lowest fidelity of you sharing me Excels. Give me your normal Excel. I will post it. When we get to a level where I know that this Excel is becoming a problem, I will do APIs. Then
Exactly.
before we start going to the high fidelity, or maybe we want to start doing partnership dashboards, ensuring things are working well. But let's start with the low one. Is it Excel you have? Is it what document you have? Share it with us.
Exactly.
So in context of technology, the on simple Microsoft Word itself also helps, but in the context of impact, yeah, we are looking at it at all full scale, but partnership, the three fidelities, Excel, API integrations, creating dashboard and widgets, those works. But in our field sales office, it's basically the mobile app. The mobile
Yeah.
app does it does the work for us because from that way we can track and the person can easily sell the insurance because value generation is easier the speed around there is faster.
I imagine. I mean, having all of this in one digital lifecycle distribution suite is entirely, I always knew that when we're going to be talking about this, I was going to be referencing Curacel Grow a lot because when you talk about agency app, again, using that as a tool to manage your network and then also having those digital rails to meet people at different points in their technology readiness, right? Those that will still send you documents that you probably need to still manually enter or use OCR to enter,
Mm.
that would be API ready. Those that may not be API ready, but have a website with lots of traffic and just need a simple widget, in a single line of code, and everything just pretty much melts into one funnel.
Yeah,
Again, it's the ability to tap into different sources
yeah,
across different channels and everything just again just melts into one pot where you have full visibility as the insurer. I
yeah.
mean, quite interesting stuff. Yeah, I mean, makes sense, makes sense. Good to know that, a lot more insurance businesses are beginning to dissect the problem in bits, and just build those pipelines to grow their retail business beyond compliance mandatory products. Now, I think I mean our time is almost up, so I'll need to let you go at some point. But if you are looking at the big picture today, right? You've touched different points in insurance. You've been on both sides of the technology, agility, speed driven first to risk, and bottom line driven business models. Uh, so what would you say if you're building your insurance venture as of today, you would do differently, right? What would you focus on to make the difference? If you were to marry both words and start a Godwin-Usoro Witness Paul Insurance PLC or Limited today, how would you approach it differently?
So that's a fantastic question. That's a very fantastic question. With all that I know now,
Yeah,
I'm doing a PhD in strategic management, and
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
and I've been actually I'm at the phase where I'm selecting my thesis topic. I've had like several options, and of
Hmm.
course, the focus has to be in insurance. Because you get that's all I've always known, you know. And one of the things I have seen is that traditional risk pooling assumes things like stable income and predictable income flows. Like they don't capture the fact that income can be volatile. Like the vocal economy in itself doesn't is not captured in it. And they don't
Okay.
even capture the fact that risk exposure can be irregular, you
Hmm.
know. So my biggest concern now will be how can we build for informal sector
Okay.
and ensure how can we build sustainably for the informal sector? Not just building sustainably for the informal sector and ensuring that people that do not understand insurance, eh, insurance is now made understandable and relevant enough. Because it's one thing to make insurance understandable. It's another thing
Okay.
for them to see the relevance in
Hmm.
it. So if I am to build anything now, yes, technology is a big deal for me at this point because has to be a digital native. You have to be digitally matured, and anybody that's building for the future must ensure that you can't even act distribution at this point now without
No.
technology. So I want to be focused on things like customer behavior, not in a theoretical manner, but in a realistic manner. What customer behavior is. I want to be focused on distribution and trust, not just for trust beyond pricing, basically. And I'll be trying my best to take away the complexity of product features, the industry jargons that we currently have, and I might be scrapping a lot of the legacy thinking I might be scrapping it. The legacy thinking. I know most times when I say it in the office, I cause a lot, I shake a lot of tables. But the reality is, if you are thinking the future, you can't be
Yeah,
dwelling in the past.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you see Godwin-Usoro witness his insurance business in 5 years' time and he's making big bucks, you heard it here first. This is what he's going to do differently. And I hope this is also valuable to our followers, our insurance practitioners, executives listening from all over the continent and beyond. Thank you very much, Godwin. I'm going to wrap it up with this question. Now we're looking and thinking into the future, right? But let's not even go too far because, again, things are evolving real fast. In
Yeah.
5 years' time, what do you envision, the adoption and retail insurance in Nigeria will look like?
Awesome. Awesome question. And I think this is a good way to end it. In the next 5 years,
Yeah.
I expect people to buy insurance every day and they don't know they're buying insurance. That is, there'll be a lot of embedded insurance. I expect the claims process to be automated, more automated in a way that people can actually get their claims in the same day and the reality for even the other claims. I expect distribution to shift more to the digital ecosystems, not just the normal way we know them. Yeah, will there be field sales officers? Yes, there will be, but at the same time, there'll be more digital ecosystem distribution, focused on digital ecosystems. Then the winner of the future in this time will be,
Uh-huh.
will be so those who can earn the trust at scale and not just sell policies.
Awesome. Awesome. And that is where Witness is placing his bet. So if you're going to be winning in the future, these are all things you need to take into consideration. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of this episode. And if you would like to be in touch with our honorable speaker, we'll leave, his email and his LinkedIn, if he permits us to, of course. In the comment section as well. So you could get in touch personally to keep the conversation going. Leave a comment with some of your questions, topics you would like us to discuss in future episodes. In fact, let us know who you would like to see in the next episode as well, right? And we might just make it happen. Thank you again for joining us. And of course, for your AI solutions, AI infrastructure, workflow, process improvements, talk to us at Curacel. We've got your back. Thank you again, Godwin. It's really been an amazing, 40, 60 minutes? I have soaked a lot. Yeah, I was just
Thank
like a
you very much,
sponge
Chief,
today,
for having
you know.
me.
I was like a sponge today, just soaking it all. It's always very interesting to hear, different perspectives, and we really value your contribution to the insurance space, especially in Nigeria and Africa as a whole. And yeah, we look forward to having you for the future episodes. Yeah, cheers.
Thank you, Mama. It was a great time. Thank you. Thank you, the Curacel team.